Hello, I'm Rebecca the Maths Lady, and this video is going to be all about how we teach children about weight. In this video, I'll cover what weight is, what units of weight we use. I'll explore devices for measuring weight, and that touches on reading scales. We'll talk about the kinds of activities you can do with weight. We'll talk about calculations with weight. And finally, we'll talk about unit conversions, although we're only laying the foundations of that in this video. We'll do some more detailed work on general unit conversions in a video later in this series. There's no particular videos you need to have watched before this one, but when you're working on the maths associated with weight, you might sometimes come across a bit of maths you want to delve into, and you'll be able to find a video that works on that bit of maths then. Right, let's get started by thinking about what weight is. Now, in the primary school curriculum, we think about weight and mass usually as being the same thing, because if you stay on Earth, they pretty much are. They're both about the downwards force that an object creates. But of course, that downward force changes depending on gravity. So if you go to the moon or to a different planet, the mass of an object stays the same, but its weight changes depending on how gravity operates on that mass. And it's nice to be able to touch on that if children are interested, and you as a teacher should have an idea of the difference between mass and weight. But since we're generally stuck here on Earth, we can treat them as being the same thing. The key units of weight we're going to be working with are grams, and a milliliter or a cubic centimetre of water weighs about a gram, and kilograms, and a litre or 1,000 millilitres of water weigh about a kilogram. There are 1,000 grams in a kilogram. We use milli when something is split into 1,000 parts, and kilo when you're adding up 1,000 things to make something that's 1,000 times the size. So 1,000 grams make a kilogram, and 1,000 metres make a kilometre. So kilo is 1,000 and milli is thousandth. The English primary maths curriculum also expects that children become familiar with pound weights as well. So I'll talk about those, but you can adapt the ideas in this video to suit any units of weight, and I certainly recommend that you go beyond grams, kilograms and pounds, because building a wider sense of the units used to measure weights often helps children hook in the particular bits of knowledge that you're looking to make sure they have. But just to be specific about pound weights, which are shortened to LBS, children need to know that a pound is about 450 grams. So there are just over 2 pounds in a kilogram. So there are 3 key bits of kit that children need to play around with as they develop a deep sense of ideas associated with weight. The first is a set of kitchen scales. The best kind to have are kitchen scales with scales on, where they have to read between the points and they develop their ideas of numbers on number lines as they're reading the kitchen scales. And I'm horrified to find today that I've thrown mine out because I've got digital scales now, which are brilliant for cooking, but are terrible for maths lessons. So if you come across a set of traditional kitchen scales in a charity shop or something, it's worth picking them up and keeping them in the classroom. Children should also get the chance to use balance scales. Now, these are often used in early years in primary schools and then forgotten about, but they are a really important idea in maths. So you need some weights and some balance scales, and children need to learn to use them and get the chance to experiment with them when they're a bit older, when the ideas of what's going on will deeply go in. Now, again, the best types of balance scales at this level are traditional balance scales with a metal pan and some heavy weights. These weights aren't very heavy. You can weigh things like pine cones and so on, but you're going to struggle with heavier items. And those traditional sets of balances do often come up on eBay and in charity shops, and they're wonderful things to have in the classroom for upper primary age children to experiment with. The challenges of combining weights so that you can make any weight you want and precisely balance things are deeply mathematical and a wonderful thing for children to do. And the third bit of kit it's really useful to have is my old nemesis, the bathroom scales. And again, it's a really good idea to have ones with a scale, so you're reading between the lines. Again, mine are electronic and the batteries are going to run out. We want to do lots of activities where children find objects and try and estimate their weights before they weigh them. That's going to give them a deep understanding of weight. A lovely activity is if a child in your class suddenly has a baby brother or sister, you might get their weight in pounds and kilograms. A 7-pound baby is a little bit over 3 kilograms. And you can build that with weights and understand the weight of the baby. And the weights of newborn babies are such a good hook for linking pounds and kilograms and getting children to deeply understand that you get just over 2 pounds for every kilogram. But ultimately, that conversion fact that a pound in weight is 454 grams just has to be learnt because it's an arbitrary bit of knowledge. It isn't logical. It has to be drilled until it's known. Another lovely classroom activity is just to choose some objects and get children to try and order them by weight. And of course you can check whether they're right or not by weighing them later. The weight of an object can feel different depending on the size of an object and the material that it's made out of. And it's lovely to play around with and exploit that to catch children out. And we can use activities like that to revise and refresh the notation for more than or less than. Remember, with these signs, the bigger end of the sign goes to the larger, or in this case, the heavier object. The pointy end of the sign is going to go to the lighter object. Next thing is children need to be able to problem solve with weights problems, carrying out calculations as appropriate. Now there's so many different types of problems that you could come up with. It's really helpful if you've got a sense of your class and where they might have weaknesses. So a classic weakness is in understanding when to use subtraction. Do your children use subtraction both when they're finding the difference between two weights and when they're starting with one weight and removing part of that weight? So are they understanding subtraction as being both difference and taking away? You can test that by setting them carefully chosen problems. And the other classic challenge is division. So if you've got a large weight and you want to split it into lots of equal small weights, how many will you get? Well, that's division as counting groups. But division could also come from a challenge where you've got a large weight and you have to split it into an equal number of parts. That's division too. Are your children confident in knowing that both of those are division? If they struggled with or need to revise the 6 ways of dealing with divisions when the answers are not whole numbers, you could embed that into your work on weight, and so on. Go wherever your instincts and your experience of your class and the children you're working with tells you you need to go to expose their weaknesses, and that will enable you to have a go at solving those weaknesses from another angle. It might be that your children need some practice on calculating with decimal numbers to 3 decimal places. You can do that with kilogram weights. And that brings me to expressing weights in different ways. So if we look at this weight, 2,349 grams, children should be able, by using their mental imagery, to understand that that is 2 kilograms, 349 grams. And this one's a little trickier, but they should also be able to see that it's 2.349 kilograms. And if they find that tricky, that's perfectly understandable. And you might want to have a little look at the video on 3 decimal places to explore how we really build children's confidence in understanding numbers to 3 decimal places as that being 2 and 349 1,000ths, because they should be able to imagine that a gram is 1,000th of a kilogram. So they should be able to follow, therefore, that that is 2 kilograms and 349 thousandths of a kilogram, and they need to be comfortable seeing that expressed in this way as a decimal number. And if there's not, there's a few ways of getting that which are explained in that video on 3 decimal places. And once you've got weights expressed like this, of course you can add them, subtract them, multiply them and divide them, depending on the problem that's set. And of course, because children now know that a pound in weight is 454 grams, you could set them problems like, what's 2 pounds in weight as grams, or 2.5 pounds in weight as grams? They're not classic conversion problems. The children are not having to work in the abstract. They're able to imagine the individual pounds of weight as grams and puzzle with them. As I said before, there will be a specific video on measure conversions which will cover weight, capacity and length and so on, and that will be later in this series. Another great activity at this stage is to get some old recipes and convert them into recipes you can work with. So you may need to know that there's 28 grams in an ounce. And of course that's something you can easily find out and children can learn to work with. And your recipes may have in measures in fluid ounces, and it's lovely to come across that and work with it. You can lead that as a teacher. It's not something they're going to be assessed on later, but it's great for their life experience to have had exposure to other units of measure. Certainly when I get recipes from the older generation of my family, I need to be able to translate them into metric units if I'm going to use them. Extension work for this topic, children can definitely investigate other measures for weight that people use. They can go and ask people what they remember, the older generation. What did you used to use? And you can extend that homework beyond weight into other measures as well. And if you tell a child that a pound is 454 grams, you can ask them, well, how many pounds are there in a kilogram then? And get them doing conversions the other way themselves. So your takeaways from this video are that you need to give children a really deep, multisensorial understanding of weight. They've got to be able to imagine it with every sense of their body and know what a gram feels like in their hands and what a kilogram feels like and what a pound feels like and how these weights relate to each other. They've got to be able to pick something up and estimate its weight. They should be confident in using kitchen scales and balance scales and bathroom scales to weigh things. They should be able to read scales on those devices, and they should be able to complete problems where they have to calculate to solve problems associated with weight. They should be able to write weights that are in kilograms and grams, either in that combined way, or just as grams, or just as kilograms. And they should be able to do simple conversions from pounds to grams. And along the way, you should all have lots of fun as a class, and it'd be great to do some cooking too. But if you bake lots of yummy things, you might want to put the bathroom scales away before exploring the consequences of that. But then maybe you're more disciplined about what you eat than I am. Okay, if you've any questions about teaching weight, then please post them in the comments. If you've any ideas to share, please post them in the comments. If you've not subscribed to this channel yet, please subscribe so you can find it again. If you've a chance to leave us a like, that would be awesome. But don't be afraid to be critical. But if you're going to be critical, please don't give us a thumbs down because we've no idea what that means. Please explain in your comments what you think could be better because I really want to know. Have a great day. Bye for now.